Well, hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Sorry. So my name's Dale Nahara. I'm with HNTB, and I'm a senior visualization artist with them for over 10 years. I'm going to go to share my, well, just give me a second, guys. I have never, I'm not a pro at the PowerPoint yet, so we will test and see how things go. But I have a lot of different things to show you guys. Um, all right. So you should be seeing my screen now. So we're be talking about designing cities in VR today. And basically, like I said, my name is Dale Nahara. I work with a company called HNTV. We work on really big city projects. Um, uh, sorry, just um, that basically change the face of way cities look, how people move around the cities, and that's how we're using visualization and moving on to VR today. And let me uh, tell you that we're very adaptable. I've had to be in my career for the last 10, 15 years. Um, because when you talk about 3D, when you talk about technology, and when you talk about, just mixed reality, everything's changing. It feels like every month something changes or there's a new tech that I want to try out and bring into our conversations. It's kind of cliche to say adapt or die, but it's the truth, especially with the way technology is today. And it's also the fun thing. This is the thing I really enjoy about all this. But before I get all into that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background or go through some topics that we'll be talking about. Uh, so, talk a little bit about the journey to VR, different approaches that we took. Then we'll show some city examples. We'll show how you can fail in VR because it definitely can. Some new tech that we're looking at, some setups, some different ways that you guys can look at maybe doing your own interactive interviews, presentations, some tips and tricks. And we'll get into a little bit of nitty gritty. I don't plan that we'll go too hardcore into that. But if you guys have questions, just let me know. And with that, let's get started. So I've lived here basically in Texas all my life. I grew up in Richardson and moved out of Richardson all the way to Plano. So and then back to Richardson. So I've lived in Richardson almost all my life. I've done a year or so in LA. Growing up, movies, especially like Jurassic Park, were a big thing for me. Uh, I also love playing video games and doing art. But basically, when I got to basically adulthood, leaving high school, parents were asking me, what do you want to do? And I was kind of just like, well, I like video games. I like art. Um, I can code C++ and I can put a computer together. I don't know what that means. I'm a nerd at heart, but beyond that, not exactly sure. So I was introduced to going to Richland College just for graphic design certification, just kind of figuring things out. Um, I think it was on the third month there. I got to go to a 3D class. I had no idea what a 3D class was going to be. And it was just simple 3ds Max 2.0, and now they're like, you know, technically the 18th version. Um, and we were just moving spheres and we were moving cones around. I loved it. I On a Saturday afternoon, I got to that class at noon, and I didn't leave that classroom until 8 p.m. And I immediately went to my parents saying, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't know exactly what this means, but I want to be in the world of 3D. Uh, I love this concept of rendering things. I love having Control Z where I can undo things. So that led me into the Art Institute, where I got a bachelor's in computer animation, um, basically doing environments, prompts, and I thought that was going to be mostly like doing video games and movies because that's really all that people talked about that I could do. But still, the industry in 2003 was pretty small, especially here in Texas. You had maybe like id Software, Gearbox, and maybe a handful of others that were even super tiny. Um, so really didn't know where I was going to go from there. But one of my friends had got a job at HNTB. Luckily, me and her were pretty good friends, and HNTB was the civil engineering firm. And for those who don't know what civil engineering is, civil engineering basically is any infraworks type of projects. Can be roadways, can be rail, aviation, drainage, can be lighting plans, anything basically to keep the city moving. Um, Firms like mine, your DOTs, your cities, they contract them out to basically engineer how things will go about, be constructed, things along those lines. And they basically had started up a visualization group doing roadways. And again, at this point in time, I'd never even seen a roadway visualization, but we had gotten the chance to get going. And after a few years, the team was building big roadway visualizations that basically showed how the new roads were going in, construction sequencing, how buildings were being impacted. We did a lot of things for public works, for public meetings. Basically, people were asking, "Hey, can you build this road?" And my company was building the road for maybe a year or two in CAD, and then some public meeting would be coming up at the last minute, and they would ask us, "Hey, can you make visuals for this?" We were like, "Sure," but we were also changing at the last second on these meetings because these plans were set in stone, and if you got something wrong, you were going into somebody's house, like you see on this image. The greenscape, is taking away somebody's, land. It's going right next door to somebody's house. So you have to be really careful, and this brings up a lot of problems for them. But we were getting bigger and bigger on our projects, as you can see. This is just a small tip iceberg of like New York project that we did. Projects just kind of got bigger from there. We were always having to change at the last second. Give you an example of how complicated things will get. The client had asked us to build a visualization for just this little stretch of roadway. But if you look, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but in the left-hand corner, you see a map. That entire gray thing is actually how much of Houston we built. They were just asking for more and more. They needed it faster and faster. Engineers, they love to see every little thing, and they love to like question every little ramp, every little corner. And especially when you're building a camera that's just supposed to go straight, and then camera like this probably took us 2 weeks to render. If they wanted to change the camera at any point in time, we were just like seeing this, especially when we were looking at data sets where this is just the buildings that they asked me to make photorealistic. I think I spent like 3 months making these photorealistic. We just kind of felt like we might have a problem here. We may need to change the ways things are going. Basically because these city plans are never final. They're usually 3 years trying to get funding, another 3 years in development, and then 3 to 5 years to actually build. When you get to the presentations of these things, they just want to see different options. The people that are presenting these things are not like marketing folks, so they don't know what they need till they finally see the final product. And a lot of times, when they see the final product, they want to make changes. And I tell them, hey, it's going to take 2 weeks you want to change the camera, it's going to take us 2 weeks. So we were looking at basically, it's time for a change. We need to, change the way that we're looking at this. Maybe going after the clients that have already, spent $10 million to build a roadway, and then the last bit of the stretch, we're asking them for another, 50,000 to build, these acclamations. Maybe that's not the best way of going about these things. Most of these DOTs, they don't have marketing budgets. They don't have, whatever marketing budget they have, they are spent or they allocated for the entire project, usually for public involvement meetings, things of that nature. So we actually looked to video games for inspiration. And a lot of friends, a lot of us had grown up in the video game industry. I had actually left in the middle of HNTV to go work on 2 video games and a couple of short films. And we looked at how those guys were working, which led us to getting into the world of real time. The only disadvantage to some of this is that we're working with very corporate clients who are wearing suit and ties and reading the work. And we got things like this on our screen half the day. So it's a little funny to basically see. We looked into Unreal, we looked into Unity, we looked into a few other things, and we still dabble in a few other things. But in the end, Unreal is where we kind of feel best at home. It's easy to get things in there. The visual quality is really high. I'm not saying you can't get that visual fidelity in Unity or anything, but Unreal seems to be like it fits all the boxes that we need, at least most. And I'll get into a little bit more how good a partner they have been with us too. But with that, I'm sure you guys want to see some examples of some work that we've done. So right here is one of our first, bits of the iceberg of just us testing what we can do in VR. Go ahead and bring up the video. So we'll bounce between this and some video stuff. Let's see. So I know you guys can't probably see the playback too well, so I'll just kind of skip through. But again, this is our first kind of getting a sense of how we can do these presentations, making teleport systems, along the lines of a subway. Just getting a feel. Right, this project wasn't too crazy, but at least it gave us a feeling of what we wanted this whole new sector to be for us. So as you can see, we're finding out that some areas we can't build. So how do we make the person not actually go there? We're learning visual fidelity at this point too. Like this guy's got great visual fidelity, but this stuff doesn't, and how much does that matter? Because in VR, in a real-time application, usually the client is going to go a lot closer to the objects than you ever thought they were going to go to. So just keep that in mind as you proceed. Then we got to do some bigger projects. This is the bullet train that was proposed for California, and they wanted to see some examples of what a bullet train going through here would actually kind of look like. So we started building this in VR. Some examples. Sorry, just a sec. So we start this example where we're actually in the train. They wanted to see what a first class cabin could look like. And see the cockpit and see all the trees and train moving around. I'm so sorry I can't actually play this, but I don't jerk you around too much, guys. But it gives you that sense of almost claustrophobia. I think we actually ended up making this a little bit bigger, just because people are being a little too claustrophobic in this area. The little teleportation things. I don't think you can tell in this animation, but we actually built a snapping feature so that we wanted people to actually place themselves right there, because once they got there, we gave them this little UI where they could pick different locations that they wanted to go to. We built a few little 360 images that people could kind of see what destinations that they would go to. But then we had the main attraction, which is the station platform. I think we used Europa as like as the inspiration for this area. So we have the train car moving in there. We always have to tell people which side of the train to get out. So maybe we could have done a better job of telling people that. So we come out onto a train station. So this is full VR. People can walk around depending on your headset. Teleport down. And we built this little blue line so people would have like basically an area of focus and idea, the areas that we wanted them to explore. So we built, I think this area was 3 levels tall, built some bars in there. Just giving people a good sense of, the area, the space, how wide open it was going to be, that it wasn't going to be a dirty subway, that some people think rail yards are. We're actually talking to some clients about, making interactive ticket booths, some new, Bluetooth, ticketing, using your phone and things like that. And hopefully we'll be implementing that into some VR projects. And again, we're also testing visual fidelity. So all this stuff was pretty readable actually in the newest headsets. So if anyone's wondering. The doors are interactive. So when we get to the doors, you can they'll open. The escalators are interactive as well. If you get on them, they will ride you up. And we have another escalator that actually goes down. Sorry. So I don't know if you can tell that. And now we're on the other side. Lets people go in and out that area. And yeah, this was a real fun project. Designers had a field day with these arches. I think we went through 10 different designs on those arches. And this entire project maybe only took us like 2 months at the most, I think. I think we iterated a little more on it. Like we added push button controls. So all you do is take your little controller, you push out, and the button hits. You hear a little bing in your ear. We noticed that it sounds. Anything you can give them, if you can give them a haptic response of just vibration, that really helps because you have nothing to, bang against when you're tapping this thing. But if you, usually I can tell people to push out their hand. I think another option would be actually have a little visual hologram of like, the controller coming out and pushing something, just to give them, because I do notice like people will sometimes push out their, their left hand, the hand that they're not really using. But it is fun to use the escalator. Again, a really good sense of scale. We had these ceiling way too low before, and people would call us out on it as soon as they would get in there. So that's always really interesting how people pick up on little details like that super fast than they would before. Then we got to do another cool project for the Bay Jacksonville area. This again was going to be in VR. They had wanted to really focus on this urban center, the new transportation rail. This is actually a railway that was going to be paved over with asphalt, and then going to have autonomous cars come, and then you use a little link or you use a little app, and like an Uber, and an autonomous car would come pick you up. And we got pretty far in this, as you can see. Had ticketing booths and everything ready to go. But then they started asking us, can you move the camera over here? Can you focus on this station? Can you focus on this street? And we were getting worried at this point because we hadn't done a lot. It looks finished now. We hadn't done a lot in this area. And then they had asked us, can you do a night shot? And we're like, well, yeah, we can, because luckily we're in Unreal, we're in real time. So really all it is putting lights in different places, change the lighting outside, texturing these windows differently. But we were able to do this change pretty fast. And then at the same time, when they had made this they had asked us, hey, we're just going to show off this street, and we're not doing VR, and we want to do like a commercial thing instead. So what we built for them is basically some cameras that go through here. We built some animations of the people, and again, since we had built it for VR, we had the flexibility of you can do VR, you can do a predefined animation, and we just send it to your commercial people. And so that's kind of what we did. If I can hear that or not, hopefully it's not too loud. I'm turning my phone on just in case. So there was a marketing firm who made all these little visual graphics, and then they took our 3D model images, and we would give them basically anything they needed. And like we said, it's all real time, so anything they needed, we could get within an hour to them. These animations, they took a couple seconds per frame, and the only reason it took a couple seconds because we were rendering them at 4K. But this basically just shows like a lot of different ways that we were using Unreal, not just for a visual fidelity, but we're like, okay, can we put all these little hotspots on people? Can we change them dynamically? Can we give every person like their own icon of what they're doing through are they shopping on their phone, or are they like this guy, he's calling it one of these autonomous cars. So it would have been really cool to finish this project off in VR, but at the same time, we got to still use the model. We didn't have to rework anything. We added work because we added more people, we added more cars than we ever thought we were going to do. But again, since we weren't going to do VR, we had the flexibility of adding just plethora of cars. I was actually in this scene earlier today. I was still getting over 100 frames per second. So I think there is a realm where we could have still do this thing on VR, just work just fine. But yeah, we got to do a lot of post graphics. Again, just always changing and doing something a little different. So, and then this just got a lot more commercial information going on. By the way, if there's any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. What type of rendering software do we use? I'll get to that in just a sec. So one more example. So we've looked at how we use it as a VR, but then we also use it. We also basically do final frame renders on like 3D Max and with V-Ray, and we bring those spherical images into Unreal, and then we port those over to Unreal S device for Android, where people can just gaze at these images and change their view. We also have little QR codes where people can download smaller apps and do 360 images and little tap on different locations that they would like to go through. So not just like VR, but we're also, just dabbling in anything that the client would like to have. Uh, sometimes this is easier just to put on a little printed sheet and then they could download. We'll get into some future technologies, but I'm hoping that this, they can do a full-on VR experience. And all they need is some type of QR code or something like that. This is another little thing that we did. Sorry. Where basically we're taking the iPhone and you can do an image detect, and it's detecting the image. And I hope you guys can see that. I know I'll pause it here and there, but it'll bring up the model. And this is just a little example. I couldn't get the latest version of this, but it's just showing that flexibility. Again, using the same models, and actually this model right here, is the same model in this little example here. This is another VR example where we're doing a turn-based system. We're using icons instead of the controls or the controller. Mostly because, like I was saying before, most of our clients, most of our customers, they're not very good with game controls. They've never played a Call of Duty or anything. So we find that icons, if you're going to give them a bunch of options, give them like icons, give them like some text to read or something. Even though, from a UI standpoint, icons and all that stuff, gestures are better. But when I only have like usually 3 minutes to work with the client on this stuff, I'd rather spend 2.5 minutes, letting them explore what the project is versus 3 minutes of just explaining how do I choose something. So pick what you want the user to actually do very carefully and know your clients. So a little bit about our setup. Okay, I'll go a little faster. So we use Samsung Odyssey mostly because it's 2 cables and it allows us to go into a high-end PC, and we don't have to worry about frame rates as much. There's newer versions coming out. We're also playing around with the Oculus Quest. We love this thing actually because we can just put something on the App Store now and just have it downloaded. And again, just that flexibility. I can be working on with the client in New York and just send him an app, iOS, whatever, type of package, and then they can just download it, from the Oculus Store. We're also using iPads. We're using the latest and greatest iPhones. We use Androids, mostly for like AR devices, but we have a few other cases that I'll get into. Laptops wise, we definitely use a laptop mostly on any interview. We use the highest quality that we can find. Anything RTX 2080 or higher is usually what we use because basically we're going to pitch on a $50 million job. If we gotta spend $2,000 or even up to $4,000 on a laptop that would stream it, without any compromises, that's usually something we're going to do. Cables, you're going to need cables for everything. Whatever device you think you're plugging into, plan on that device not being there, and you're going to need some other type of device, or it's going to lose power. So just cables, 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 and this little thing. I have my secret area of cables at work where I tell people not to touch. This is some of the setup that we use in the office where we have a couple screens. I'm able to see what the user's actually seeing, and then they're walking around, which makes it pretty easy to work. This is kind of a pseudo interview state where we'll have a nice little laptop to the side plugged into a TV so people can get an idea what the guy is actually seeing and talking about, and we can talk to them pretty normally. Some of the newer tech that we're testing out, we're using on the left is a touch screen that people can just come, touch, and have a multi-user type of experience. The other thing I want to talk about is when we're in VR, we're talking about anything real time or just any project, be comfortable with failure. You're going to fail. Failure is going to happen, but it's okay. Things will break. You can always fix it. As long as you save your stuff, we can always fix things. But at the same time, you're also going to notice that your projects, even though you've done everything right, might still fail. When we did this project, we were noticing people were having a really hard time navigating. Our pseudo option at this point was to do this path blue line to tell people where to go. A better option would be actual physical signs like you would in the real world to tell people where to go. We're talking to clients right now who are like wanting to use this as a device to tell people wayfinding. You know, if we don't plan at this stage how people are going to go through our facility, how are they going to know it around? I've done visualizations for 15 years, and I've done little, first person views all the time, but I always told them that like I can make something look obscure or I can make it look, zoomed in and, based on just my camera link. But in VR, you're never lying to the client. You're never lying to the user. If he can't read that sign, it's for a good reason. It's not because I chose the wrong camera. It's because we don't have that sign big enough and we need to make contrast in the things. Same thing down here. People were seeing this and they didn't know where the exit was. So this is another thing where, I say we failed, but we also learned that, that next project, we need to have some more, information out there. We need to talk to our clients about putting that in there. Or maybe we just suggestfully just put it in there, and just see what they feel. We're really good about just kind of failing and seeing what happens, seeing, what the client's going to, gravitate toward and giving them options. One of my friends, he had this idea, why don't, if you have these massive maps, why don't you have like the user before he ever goes down, he clicks on where he wants to go down at. That way he knows a layout instead of just popping them into the central thing of a 3 or 4 story area. So just fail fast, learn faster, work with the clients. Even if the client's not communicating to you, you can always be communicating to them. This was a good example where we just started putting signs down, but then the clients started giving us real information that they would have never given us unless we had started putting things out there because we were noticing, hey, this is not working for us. So just build 60. Got one little quick thing to show. This is another thing where now, luckily, everyone is online right now. So this project came up during COVID where we were just going on for days about, these arches and the way this footprint was. So I was lucky enough to actually work with the architect and just go through a bunch of different options. And I was modeling this stuff in real time, and he was telling me what he liked, what he didn't like, changing like the B curve on these buildings. And within a day, all those changes happened like in a day or two. And by the next morning, I had gotten the building into VR. And within like 2 days, we had gotten textures onto the buildings and gotten actual, people into the air. So this is another thing, like this is a project I can show because we actually, from just this, very rudimentary stage, we showed little pieces to the client we were going to interview with, and they felt that we were so far ahead on everyone else that they went in and awarded us the project. So we didn't actually even have to go to the final interview. We were just showing them things like this, nothing final, but just giving them ideas. I didn't even finish the class. I just put a plane up here, but they were happy with that. And, again, working in real time, this was going to be a full VR thing. But I'm just sad that I didn't get to finish it. In my spare time, I even showed them what it would have looked with like ray tracing glass on there because, of course, I'm an artist and I have to, just keep on fidgeting with things if you let me. So I just thought that'd be a cool show. This is another thing we're also testing out. So this is a little iPad right here, and I can hook my iPad up to my Unreal session and give this to a architect, and he can tell me. Uh, Forgot, yeah, probably can't see that very well. He can tell me, where he wants that camera. Right now I'm just using little touch controls, but he can physically take that iPad and he can move it around just like they do on Mandalorian or something like that, uh, and really get a sense of like what his environment's going to be. Uh, in case we are doing VR or if we're doing pre-rendered visualization. And again, this is all real time, so if he needs to come back and re-render everything, it's fine. It only takes maybe a day to re-render this stuff at the most usually. So yeah, we'll get into some of the software. So these are the softwares we dabble in a lot. Primarily 3D Max. We get our information from AutoCAD. A lot of the road designs from Conversation. We utilize some free sources like Quixel Bridge there on the left, which has a bank of scanned textures. And on the right, we have Substance, which is procedural textures, but we can go in there and change the brick, change the colors, at random or any way we need. We're good friends with the people at Nearmap. They are amazing. If y'all need aerial textures or you just need aerial of a site, Nearmap guys are amazing. They have the best, I think they go up to 1.5 inch resolution per pixel. For years, we were on like 2 foot per pixel. So we were recoloring things. We have to use Google Maps all the time as well to get information. And then another thing we're using right now with Unreal is Datasmith. This was the big thing that pushed us to Unreal because we can take all our 3D Max files, CAD files, even Rhino files, and port them through Datasmith into Unreal, and it propagates everything in the correct geospatial rotations, scales. It understands all of that. It doesn't make it super optimized. We usually bring things into Max, optimize things, and then port it to Datasmith. But if we just need to go, hey, tomorrow we just need to shoot something in Unreal, we can get it there easy peasy usually. Actually, that subway one with 360 images, that was all for the early stages of that. We just ported that stuff to Unreal so then we could have something going on. And then from Unreal, like I've been saying, we can do still images, interactive experiences. We can do augmented reality. We can dice the way we want the tool up, to all these type of mixed realities. There's some interviews where we'll have a mixed reality AR device going while we still have the same model going in VR, and we let the client just circle the room, dabble in all these technologies that we have. Just the cool things that the other cool things that Datasmith does, proximity, does proxies, LODs, collision data. It can build that in, and we have scripters in our department that can script a lot of this stuff into it. Little workflow. So a lot of if you have big architectural files, start with the biggest files first and work your way down, especially if you're on a time crunch. Optimizing, you want to just go from the bottom to lowest, and that's where you're going to save frames per second faster. Taking your draw calls down for those who've never worked. Draw calls are basically every object is a draw call. If your object has more than one texture on it, that's an additional draw call per texture. So you want to get it all from the left to the right, where you take away all the unnecessary things, and then you want to get your textures down to like 1 or 2 textures. Like this building, I think it was 3 textures for solid glass, trim, and then a mix of the 2. These are just examples of some of the assets, but you just want to optimize this up as much as you can. But you can get really good fidelity, as you kind of seen from this stuff. Unreal's got really good ways of checking your shaders to see which shaders are using more. Red is bad, green is good. The red in this example are transparencies and opaque objects, so glass and refractions. Another example is a quad draw or quad overdraw, where basically you have geometry on top of geometry, and it's got those pixels over the points. Blue is good. Getting over to the purple is bad. You want everything to be blue. And there's other optimization features, but I thought these are the most two critical ones that you can get started right away. Controller schemes, do not go with stuff on the left. If you're working with engineers or you're working with clients that don't know how to do video games and can't be around, learning the tools for the next 10 minutes, give them 1, 2 buttons at the most. Anything else, if they have optional buttons throughout the game, and if you're gonna have like the elevator thing, we could have made the elevator thing a button, but it was only a button that they would only use 1% of the entire experience. So instead, we just made that gesture, and that was just pretty easy to do. Some of the newer tech that we're looking into, especially during COVID, we're looking at basically doing multi-user experiences where architects and us can get into an environment and start making decisions. So we're looking at doing some more menu systems. We're looking at doing like AI chat with Cortana, AWS. Hopefully that becomes something. And then 5G, we'll be able to hopefully download bigger files into the Oculus, into VR sessions on the fly, and maybe doing some picture streaming. So I know this was a lot of information, guys. This are some of the groups I'm involved with, like a bunch of short guys, where we do a lot of creative VR games and all different types of things and conventions. Some of the local teams here in Dallas that you can that are doing a fantastic work. AMP Studios has a 3,000 square foot green screen that you guys can go and talk to those guys at any point in time. Flight School Studios, they do amazing VR things for like Pepsi and everyone's Super Bowl ads all the time. Groove Jones is another great one. So these are just the people I admire. I know all these teams pretty well. Element X is another one here. So I look forward to seeing what you guys can create. I'm so glad that you guys could come out and spend your afternoon with me. I'm sorry we didn't have more time.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Yeah, it was a very interesting presentation. I always thought that designing cities was a very interesting and practical use for VR. I know nowadays they have those the RealWear glasses that they're having all those construction workers wear so they can see some sort of real-time city data. Yeah, very interesting. So we have 2 more speakers in the AR VR track coming up on Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and paste a link to that in chat. We have on Tuesday, there's a keynote event with Darren Woodson and Nastia Lukin at 6 p.m. with Dallas Startup Week. On Wednesday at 6 p.m., there's also a State of the Entrepreneurship session with Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. That should be interesting. And keep an eye out for the Fort Worth Global Entrepreneur Week. That is November 16th to November 20th. Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel.
Appreciate it.
And I'll see you guys on Thursday.